Leanna, you heard from John? Leanna?
No, I have not.
Okay. Well, we got 5 minutes yet, so.
Too early to hear from John. You know better, Pete.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes. I forgot.
He'll be here about 2 after.
Yeah. Sure, we all talk smart when he's not online.
I tell him that when he's here.
Oh, okay.
If he's on time, I tell him he's 2 minutes early.
Yeah.
When has he been on time?
There has been a couple.
Okay.
And I don't have Kyle filling in today. He's actually tied up out at Solid Waste.
So a brief 2021 budget update. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, it'll be brief.
I'm going to.
But we really haven't changed anything.
Yeah, I'm going to probably postpone the committee goals until Bob's back. Other than, unless somebody has some ideas that they want.
Well, I've got the ones from last year,
right,
for you guys to look at.
I'm sure
Kyle's at his new job.
I'm sure we accomplished all those.
Yeah, we've reallocated some staff this week and some of the next week to help a department out. Hey, Chris. Chris Jefferson.
Yeah.
Hey, can you pull up your spreadsheet when we get to that discussion? And so we can see the two different options that are being proposed?
Yeah, I can do that.
All right, thank you.
It's 9 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. Was the meeting properly noticed, Lila?
Yes, it was.
Roll call. I would note that all members are present with the exception of Chairman Bob Gabarski, who's excused today. And Board Chairman John West is intending to participate and should be here shortly. Have you all had a chance to review the agenda If so, I'd look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Edwards moves.
Moved by Edwards,
Second by Pease.
second by Rick Pease. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yay
Aye.
or aye. Thank you. Anyone opposed say nay. Agenda is approved. We have the minutes from September 9th in front of us. If you've had a chance to review that, I would look for a motion to approve the minutes.
Rick Pease so moves.
Rick Pease makes the motion. Second.
Edwards second.
And Marge Edwards seconds it. Any discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand if you could. Thank you. Anyone opposed say nay. The minutes are approved. Lyanna, is there any correspondence for us to review?
We had the 3 letters that we sent out from Judge Wood.
Has everybody had a chance to look at those letters from Judge Wood? Okay.
Pete,
We'll discuss.
this is Scott.
Scott.
Pete, this is Scott. I did not receive the second letter. I received the first and the third, not the second.
Okay. All right. We'll see if we can get that to you. The second is similar to the first.
I did email that to you this morning, Scott.
Okay, I haven't checked my email since about 8, so.
We'll discuss that when we get to the sheriff's report. Moving on, item number 7, district attorney. Do we have some from the attorney's office on board here?
Tania's here. Good morning.
Morning, Tania.
Morning.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good, you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Just a general update. Things are going okay. We are still on our rotating schedule to minimize people in the office, which has been beneficial. I think we've had a couple quarantine issues that we've dealt with okay without a big interruption. And more importantly, we are working on filling our vacancy finally. We are interviewing 7 out of, I think, 16 or so candidates, applicants, this week, tomorrow, and Friday. So hopefully we will have, there are some promising applications, and hopefully we'll have somebody very qualified to assume that paralegal office manager position and get back up to full staff.
Nice to see there were a lot of applicants, huh?
Yeah, there were not quite as many that met all the qualifications as I would have liked, but I think a paralegal is a little tough to come by. So we'll see what pans out. There's a couple that have either some good education training or some good experience. So
Good.
Good.
unless you have any questions about any of that or the expense report, that's really all I have this morning.
Board members, any questions for Tania? Thanks, Tania. Have a great day.
You too.
Number 8 is child support. Janet, I don't believe, is attending today. If anybody had a chance to review her report, I find her numbers tend to look very good generally. She always talks about her arrears rate, which exceeds the statewide standard all the time. So I'm pleased about that. And her expense report looks pretty good.
Actually, I would really like to say that I like that her not attending, but putting some remarks on the bottom of her report this time. I really like that part. I would hope that other people follow through with that also.
I agree with that, because if they're not attending, at least you're able to get some kind of narrative. I agree with that, Rick.
Hi, everybody. I am here. Was able to make it. I do have another conference going on at the same time, but
welcome aboard, Janet. So how's it going? How's it running?
Everything's going great. We're working on figuring out what to do with our corp counsel issue for our child support attorneys, and we'll have that resolved and everything should be okay. We do have the same attorneys till the end of the year now, the 2 guys that have been doing this, so we'll get it all worked out and It's been a rough road, but we're getting the job done. So
Your numbers look good.
thanks.
And, your budget seems to be pretty much spot on. Any questions for Janet from the committee?
Jen, I think you already heard me say that the comments at the bottom of your report this time are well received and welcomed by me. So I would hope that if you don't attend in the future at some meeting, I would hope that continue, because that helped me go through your report without you there. So thank you.
Thank you very much. You all have a nice day.
Thanks, Janet. Clerk of Court, Lori, I don't believe is on board, but she did put a report through.
I actually am here too.
Hey, you're fooling me today.
I wasn't planning on attending last week, but since it got moved this week.
How's it going?
Good. Still keeping up with everything. So far, the COVID issues haven't hit our office, knocking on wood. We've been discussing a lot about what we would do if our offices gets hit. It's going to be challenging. We've been talking with a lot of the other clerks of courts, actually the last few days, because Juneau County's gotten hit very hard, and just in the last few days, and their clerk of court called me yesterday and wanted to know how the remote session works, and so far we haven't had to do that. So we've got a District 7 meeting next week, and I believe a lot of that is going to be discussed at that time too. So just keep our fingers crossed that we can keep things running as smoothly as they have been going. So
How's scheduling working out with the boardroom, the new boardroom?
actually not too bad. It's been going pretty well.
Good.
So,
Numbers look good.
Lori, this is Scott Pease.
yeah.
Good, Scott.
Is there any, has there been any jury trials?
Not yet. We thought one was going to go
Or
tomorrow.
upcoming?
We thought one was going to go tomorrow, but that one got settled late Friday after hours. The next one that's scheduled is a civil trial, November 12th and 13th. That one's got a final pretrial scheduled for the 26th. I don't know what's going to happen with that. Generally, a lot of those don't normally go. And then we don't have anything scheduled until January. So we're still kind of
That's good. Thank you.
newbies on that part of it too, and how things are working on that. But every time one comes up, we start scheduling walkthroughs and stuff so that we are prepared as much as possible. So
Good. Any other questions for Lori?
No, sounds
Thanks, Lori.
good job.
Oh, Mark.
thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Well, we go to Register of Probate Chris Langer. I don't believe she's on board, but then I didn't think the last two were on board. Chris, are you on?
You're 0 for 2.
Yeah, I guess so. Had anybody have a chance to look at her report? She does also have a narrative on that. But her numbers look good on the budget, so there really isn't any big issue there that I could see. Any questions about that? Okay, we'll move on from there to, let's see, emergency management. Jane, I know Jane's on. Jane? Jane was on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Does anyone have any questions on my report?
I don't. Any board members have a question for Jane?
Yeah, I have a question.
I'd just like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Scott.
Jane held an emergency management meeting, the first one I attended, and it was well run. She was very update on everything she proposed to us and showed to us. I'd just like to mention that she did an awesome job.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that.
Jane, in the budget, we gave you some money out of sales tax. Could you tell us what that money is going to be used for?
So in this next year's sales?
In next year's budget, yes.
Okay. Casey, is Casey on?
Yep, I'm on.
So is that extra money that was given in the budget?
No, that is just in lieu of what we had budgeted.
Okay, that's what. I thought it was for a specific project.
It is for a specific project.
It's if that is for the capital equipment.
Yep.
That's what you're referring to. I'm sorry, Rick. Yes, that is for upgrades to the communication radio system, and they're much needed because that system has been in place since, I believe it was 2008, 2009, and the upgrades. What's happening is we have a company that we have a maintenance agreement with, and that's Baycom. And Baycom comes in and we meet with them annually, once a year, and they propose the upgrades that are needed so that we have an effective communication system for our first responders throughout the county. They're much needed.
That's fine. I just wondered what it was for. I'm used to that. That's probably the right time for that, because where we used to work, me and Scott, we'd upgrade about every 10 years our radios or whatever we use to communicate. So that falls right in line. I just wondered what it was there for.
Yeah, and their recommendations usually are every 7 to 10 years for the large upgrades. As far as the batteries and the others, things like that, I do that like every few years.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Any other questions for Jane?
I got one more. Jane, wasn't there some grant money too that is involved in that?
For the communication tower upgrades?
I thought maybe for the radios.
Yeah, not the radios. There's not any grant monies out there for the radio system at this time. Those grants have kind of dwindled down. We wish that there was money out there for radios, because then we could help each of the first responders, because I know that they are all in need of, upgrades and more radios.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for Jane? Thanks, Jane. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Medical examiner, Marilyn Rogers.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Marilyn.
Well, it continues to be a banner year for the medical examiner's office. We had 181 cases up until today, and last year we hit 181 on November 15th. So we're quite busy. But the good thing, revenue is up almost $8,000 from last year, but that's because we are so busy. I did hire a new deputy who is currently in training. I go with her on all her calls, but I think she'll be a wonderful addition to the staff. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
I was just going to ask you if you'd hired someone, because if you're that busy,
yes,
you need somebody.
But we are also short, one out with a knee replacement and one out with the illness, but we're okay with the new deputy. And as soon as she's on her own, it'll be big relief.
Questions for Marilyn from the committee? How's the car running, Marilyn?
Awesome.
I just got to ask every time,
And we actually got a parking space because everybody was complaining wherever we would park because it's such a big vehicle. So Bill gave us a parking space, and that's wonderful.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. When you drive the limos. Any further questions for Marilyn? Thanks, Marilyn.
Thank you. Bye.
Moving on to the Sheriff's Department, item number 13. Brent, you on?
Yes, I'm on. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Any questions with the written report portion?
No, that was quite lengthy.
Yeah, I see it got printed a different format this time. Nothing with any of those numbers then, or those reports?
No, I don't think so. Nothing really stood out. Is there something you want to highlight there or no?
No, just is showing, the calls for service, the number of bookings, the jail population. So
nice. It's a nice report, though. I like it. Thanks. Any questions from the committee regarding that? Okay, we move on.
All right. So the next one is the ATV. Well, the expenditure report was in that same one, so
right.
I assume no questions with that. All right. So the next one is the ATV UTV rules. Is there something specific? I have some information to discuss, but if there's something specific the committee would like me to cover, I can certainly address it as I talk through what I have.
The only question I have, I think the general consensus that came out of the meeting, the board meeting, was the concern about safety issues and liability insurance, open intoxicants, license, that type of thing, were the things that were generally, I think, discussed at the board meeting and were the overall concern. I think I speak for the committee when I say that. Is that correct?
That's correct, Pete.
So okay. Then I'll turn it over to you for your thoughts on it, Brent.
Sure. So I'll reference.
I got one comment on that. I actually got one comment on that. I had a Tavern League member approach me saying that you announced at their meeting that the county board was totally against ATV, UTV travel.
No, I didn't say that you guys were against it. Basically, just it was brought up. Just talked about what had happened at the last county board. It was sent back to highway. So.
I just want to say that we're not totally against it. At least I'm not. I just want to make sure it's done the right way with some safety precautions in the rules.
Sure, absolutely. So last, I think it was January, there was an ATV ad hoc committee that was formed. I was on that committee. One of the things that we looked at and that I had brought up were safety concerns, and which were speed requirements, open and tox, age and license requirements. And those are in the minutes in our January 15th meeting. As the ATV ad hoc committee worked through trying to do that, we sought Corporation Council's input on that. And during that portion, Corporation Council gave a legal opinion that we were not able to be more restrictive with the county ordinance to enact speed, open and tox, age and license requirements. I think we had another meeting or two. We pretty much figured out that the committee couldn't do much more with any of that. And the committee at that point was dissolved, I think, in February or March. There were some changes made to the application process itself. But when the committee was first formed, that's what, when I go to the town board meetings, that's what I hear of those same concerns that sounds like the committee has. That's why I brought those up to address those. And that was the direction that Corp Council gave us, that we couldn't do that. So
what did they give you that in writing?
I wasn't the one that talked to Corp Counsel about that, so I just know.
Brett, my concern is that I take a look at what the Dells did. Theirs is fairly restrictive.
Yes.
I mean, and my understanding was that you could make it more restrictive. You can't make it less restrictive. And because theirs is you have to have a destination. You can't just be cruising. You got to have a destination in the Dells, and no open intoxicants. You have to have liability insurance. You have to be licensed. So if they can do it, I'm wondering why we can't.
Well, that was, we shared those same concerns to Corp Counsel at the time. We provided examples of other counties that have a more restrictive ordinance, but that was the legal opinion we got from the county's attorney at the time.
What's your stand? How is whatever we have, how is that enforced?
If it was a county ordinance, we'd enforce it. The county, we would enforce it. I think there was some Corporation Counsel also, I think, had some concerns whether we could enforce the county ordinance. Like where could we enforce it? Just on county roads, on town roads, on trail systems. So I think there was some. He wasn't sure where we could all.
Question about where your authority started and ended.
Yeah, I think he said we could only, maybe do it on county roads, but we obviously have other ordinances that we enforce outside of county roads. So I think Supervisor Hamburg was on that committee. I think he was the one that had the direct conversations with Corp Counsel about that.
I've had a couple of conversations with him about it. Yes.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on the ATV UTV from the board?
This is Casey. Can I weigh in real quick?
Sure.
Just kind of some updates of what's going on. We did have that legal opinion from our former Corp Counsel, and at that time, a lot of things were developing. Now, I believe there's over 30 some counties or communities that have the ordinance that Wisconsin Dells put into place, and there hasn't been a single challenge statewide to any of those ordinances, and they're all very similar. So essentially, if they do get challenged and they do get thrown out, then you'd be looking at all those communities losing their ATV ordinances, which would strip ATV use statewide. So we are hopefully going to be looking at that either at the Highway Committee or at the ad hoc, depending on how they want to move forward with it. But I believe the basis of what came out of the county board meeting is to address those issues specifically. And then on top of what Sheriff York just mentioned, I believe insurance was also a requirement that the board wanted to see. So we will be looking at that ordinance and potentially adopting it here.
Good. I guess we'll wait to hear then. More questions from the board? Okay. Let's discuss courthouse security, Brent.
All right. Well, I guess as the budget process moved along, Casey advised that he was looking at doing private security for the single point access for the building. Going into the budget process, we had planned, as been discussed throughout, I guess the ad hoc committee staffing, and I guess who would be screened and what that would look like. We also had been working on policies for getting that ready for screening for the courthouse, for the safety security facilities committee. And so as it stands right now, it's a private security company going to be doing the screening for that single point access. I have some concerns with that, I guess mostly around safety concerns. I think those are valid concerns with everything that's, department heads, and I think most of what a lot of the committee members had said to build this building and to keep the employees safe. And I don't know that can really be done with a private security person standing there that's unarmed and has no authority to do anything.
Do you have a counter proposal?
So I do. I guess I guess first off, I mean, is what's the direction the committee wants to go? I mean, we've been planning for how we had talked about it with my staff doing that screening, developing policies, and it seems like that's wavering. And also, are we going to do single plan access? Are employees going to get screened? I thought that was kind of all set, but it's kind of hard to plan for all this if that changes.
I think that the general consensus the committee has always had was there was a single point of entry for everybody. I guess my concern is a couple things, and I got your letter. I got the judge's letters. I think first impressions are important when people walk in the door. And while I'm concerned, as everybody is, about courthouse security, the closer you get to any target, the more hard it is. And there's always an armed guard in the courthouse, right? In the courtroom, right? I mean, pretty much there's always somebody in there armed. So that's, and if somebody's coming in to pay their taxes or they're going to the county clerk's office, is it necessary to have an armed guard there? I can live with it if we can do it within the budget. But my concern is, I think in the last discussion we had, Brent, you talked about the need to have a lieutenant or a sergeant, and I'm a little concerned. Why can't we just use a deputy? I guess the concern I have here, if speaking personally, is it's not whether we can maybe wedge it in the budget this year. I'm wondering what that looks like in the future budget, because with benefits and with pay scale, that will go up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So if you could talk to that, I appreciate it.
Sure. So basically, it's really essentially creating a different division within the department. So the patrol sergeant that's on patrol is aware of what's going on the road, in the street, within the county. There's a lot of different scheduling and meeting and staffing issues that would happen with staffing those people, scheduling the staff at the door for late meetings, extra security needed for different types of hearings and things like that. That just takes it away from outside the realm of what that patrol sergeant is doing now. Mind you, that patrol sergeant's also a deputy handling calls out on the street. And so there's really a need for supervision within the courthouse of those deputies that would be screening.
So you're saying that's a separate division of the sheriff's department? You would create that?
It almost would be, yes.
I have a question. If you're talking a separate division, then what is your courtroom officer? Who does that person report to?
So that the current court security officer would be incorporated in this proposal, and it would be one of the three people that would be responsible.
Where do they currently report?
To the patrol sergeant and patrol lieutenant, because there's just one person at this time for that job. Obviously, with adding those additional people, like I said, it's going to be a lot to determine when to man the screening. Extra meetings, different things. We are also going to incorporate the transports under the supervision of the supervisor. A lot of the transports are required, coming to court. So right now that is handled under the jail.
So, Rick, Scott, thoughts on it?
My thoughts are, 3 months ago we came here and the proposal was for $350,000 to $375,000 to do this point of entry with 4 people. And then we went down to 3 people. Then Casey went out and got a bid for private security, and now we could now do it under constraint of possibly 2 people. So the target does keep moving, and I'm like you, Pete, I'm wondering if we need a supervisor there. It seems like there's many sergeants or lieutenants that could possibly supervise these people. And I guess I'd like to see at some point, instead of, we want to keep adding staff. I don't know if it's necessary to add staff. One thing about government is we always want to add staff where, private industry sometimes dictates that they can do it just as well as the government can do it. So I'd like to see the proposal. I don't really have seen the numbers as the way I just described them.
This is Casey. We can run through that real quick so you guys kind of have a little more basis to what to talk about. Chris, if you could share your screen for everyone, please. Lena, can you make Chris a hold, please? Thank you.
Yeah, he is.
So, and this is going through the budget as we discussed in the last meeting. Sheriff York was going to come forward with a proposal. There's 2 different ones that we'll look at here.
Can we expand that a little bit? Just a little.
Can you make it a little bigger, Chris?
I have it maximized on my screen.
No, I need to go up to the 100% and make it like 115 or something.
Oh, sorry.
Or 125. There we go.
Perfect.
So the proposal that Sheriff York is bringing forward is because of the low census in the jail and the anticipated long-term trend is that we're going to see a low census count in our jail. Sheriff York is proposing to take one of the jail positions, a jail deputy, and convert it into a patrol deputy, which would cost an additional $13,782. And then this proposal, Sheriff York is proposing that he adds an additional lieutenant. And then they threw some overtime in there. So that would mean you would have the existing Deputy Hewer, and then you would be converting that jail deputy and 1 new lieutenant position. Starting in March, they'd be looking at the total cost for next year would be $137,280, which our budgeted amount is $140. Their total annualized cost is $158. So on an annualized basis, you'd be starting out next year short by about $18,000. The upside of that lieutenant, in addition to what Sheriff York has discussed, they wouldn't be subjected to overtime. So using on-call or reserve deputies, they are transport staff. They would fill need and minimize the amount of overtime that potentially would be worked there. If you want to flip over to the next one, the sergeant option. So under this option, you're looking at a total annualized cost of $150, and instead of a lieutenant, you're looking at a patrol sergeant in that position. If as was kind of suggested here, you looked at 2 deputies instead of a sergeant and lieutenant, this would go down another about $10,000. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah.
So you'd be looking at $140 for the annualized cost, and then starting in March, it would be a little bit cheaper yet. So our total budget figure right now is $140. So this is kind of part of the discussion. So the proposal gets under the dollar amount that we have budgeted. Pete, I agree is you're kind of hitting the nail on the head as far as longer term, the costs are going to escalate faster as an employee versus a contract. Sheriff York's contention and the letter of support that you received from Judge Wood, they would all like to see an armed staff there, armed deputy, for various reasons. So in talking coverage wise, under the contract for the contracted services, we'd be looking at 3 people through the contract that are unarmed, that would be at the screening location at all times. Under Sheriff York's proposal, he would have 2 to 3 there at all time, or there during all main screening times, and then 1 armed deputy would always be there when the screening center was open. So the big change would be, the biggest difference between the two is there would be times, and that obviously that would be the times that you don't have very high traffic. You would have 1 deputy there. So that's the biggest difference. 3 unarmed versus 1 armed. That's the decision I think that you guys need to make as a committee. And then obviously what structure you'd like to see. Sheriff York definitely would like to see the lieutenant position. And the sergeant position was another option. And obviously if we just went 2 deputies, that would be another option that we could look at as well. It's completely the committee's choice on how you want to proceed. But there's opportunity costs with each of these options that I think you guys need to consider.
Committee thoughts.
Casey, I have another question that may or may not concern this. When we talk, if we end up building phase 3 and 4, are we looking at the same 1 entry point with a secure entry in the next building also? So then we'd have 2 of these, and then
so we've discussed that. Obviously, having the staff at security point is exceptionally expensive. So some of the preliminary conversations we've had with the architects is looking at more of a hardened structure. We would still have a single point of entry, the way the building's designed, but to mitigate having to add staff, like you'll see something very similar in Stevens Point, in the city and county facilities up there. What you'll see is there's thicker glass, things like that for physical barriers as opposed to having the screening. So it's something we could probably move away from in that facility, and then maybe just have a screening station there. So when we do have meetings, things like that, we could have security staff come over and perform screening, which would be no added cost then at that point. So our goal is to do those 2 phases without having to have that added cost of staffing or contracting, whatever it may be.
Marge, Scott, thoughts?
I guess my thought is.
One at a time. Marge, start with Marge.
Go ahead, Marge.
Okay. I guess my thought is I can kind of agree with what the judge and the sheriff are both proposing, but I cannot see putting in a lieutenant or a sergeant. Having worked courthouse security in the past, I don't feel a need for that type of supervision, and I think it could be operated under the jail supervisors.
Thanks, Scott.
Me and Rick both worked out at a federal institution, not a penitentiary, but we had between 1,000 and 1,200 inmates behind the wall. We had 1 person unarmed up front, and in the whole time I was there, there was no incidents that they would ever need to use a firearm. I do agree with having security down there and all that, but if this is all about just whether he's going to be armed or not, I would go with both options are okay. The one time you'd absolutely need it, well, you'd have it there, but I don't know, maybe Rick has more into this, but we had never had no incidents where that person down front ever needed to draw a weapon. When I was there, at least.
I guess my way in on this is, instead, I wouldn't say instead, but you need a good communicator down there more than you need somebody who's armed down there. And as long as we had the right people there to be professional and go through policies, there wouldn't necessarily be an armed person there. Now, if we can do it within the sheriff's budget here, without any supervisors, with just 2 deputies in the jail, I mean, that does fit into the budgeted amount that we're looking for even next year. I could possibly go along with that, but I just know that being armed is an added security, but being a better communicator is probably your best security, and where the training should really lie.
I really agree with what you said. I'll go back to what I said in the beginning. I think first impressions coming in the door are far more important than whether somebody's carrying a sidearm. And I guess my concern is that to make it fit within the budget, we're basically kind of reducing staff. And if we decided to go that way with the sheriff's proposal, I'd want a yearly review of that, because if that cost suddenly jumped up the second year, we need to have the ability to review that. Personally, I'm okay with, it's what I did in my previous life. And I hired a lot of security guards in banks that I worked for in Milwaukee, and we never had an armed guard in the lobby. I just think it's a difference, though, between arming a security person and arming a sheriff's deputy, and I understand that. But I'm not sure it's necessary. That's my thought on it. But I'm open to what the committee wants to do.
Supervisor Hickethier, can I speak just for a couple?
Sure, no problem. Go ahead, Brent.
So just one of the things, talk about communication. I'm not sure how the security staff is going to communicate with my staff, because they're not going to have radios that would be on our frequency.
Couldn't they have a radio that's on a frequency that would go to your office if they needed help? Wouldn't have to be one of your radios. It could be a radio with one frequency that communicates to your office.
Yeah, I guess that's possible to do something along those lines. I mean, I just, with this proposal with the 140 with the private security company, there's nothing in there for any radios. So I'm not sure how that communication would go. Right now, as it stands, I guess they would have to dial 911 and we'd have to respond appropriately. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. I mean, there are going to be people unfamiliar with the courthouse, the locations of the building, where to send people. So
that's training, of course, but
in our policy that we have for the screening, the people at the door screening are the ones deciding who comes in, why, and have the authority, or under the current policy that we're, it's not been enacted, of course. But those are the people deciding who's coming in the building. So I think there's a lot of issues that'll come up with that. But again, that's for you guys to decide. I know Supervisor Hickethier, you on that conference call with Permar with us that day, and heard, I guess, what would happen if certain things happen at the door at the point of entry.
Actually, I wasn't on that call, but I did hear about it.
That's right, you weren't. I apologize. So I guess that's all I had to add with that.
Pete, could I add something? This is Dave Carlson.
Sure, Dave, go for it.
All right, I just want to add my 2 cents in this, if I could, please. Brent and I have talked a lot about this whole security screening and what is best for the employees and what's best for the county in general. And we come back with this proposal. There's several reasons for the proposal. Moving forward, we're going to have 2 active courtrooms upstairs, and right now we have 1 security person. And under this Permar, we would still only have one upstairs, and we could potentially have two trials or two court proceedings going on at one time. That other person could be used to help up in that level also when people get out of hand in the courtroom. So that's one of the reasons it would be nice to have another member to be able to go from doing the screening and then help with the security up in the courtroom itself. And then as far as the supervisor.
Dave, before you go on with that, let me ask a question on that. If we had two trials running, wouldn't you put two men, wouldn't you at that point put a armed deputy in each courtroom? If you had two trials running at the same time?
That's my thought, yes.
But I mean, even if we went with Permar Security or some security firm in the lobby, you'd still be doing that, wouldn't you? I mean, you wouldn't run two trials with one guy up there. You'd probably put two guys up there.
Certainly, and we'd have to do it in that case, Pete, we'd have to pull somebody off the patrol, or we'd have to bring somebody in on overtime to do that. What I'm saying is we'd have 3 staff members that we'd have the ability to position them through those type of situations.
Okay.
So then, as far as the supervisor part is, part of the things that I do, I look at the job duties of all the employees here, and I can tell you that we have some things that could be going to that lieutenant's position. And number one, the reason I would like to see it as a lieutenant is because we would have more flexibility without union restrictions as far as moving their hours and possibly even days. It would be much better for us. It would probably in the long run be cheaper than having even a deputy, potentially a deputy that we're paying overtime rate to. So I would like to see us proceed with the lieutenant position because of that. And also we would take all the transports and all the extra things that we have for our on-call staff. They would be under that person. And that for our jail staff is just too much. I can tell you that things are lost. Communications, it's the jail staff has things on their plate, and then to ask them to continue with that's just not going to be too much. It's going to be too much for them. So that's my 2 cents on this. If anybody has any questions for me.
So Dave or Brent, either one. So what happens with sick days, holidays, vacation? Who covers? Because if you got a security agency, you just say, send me, some guy's gone, and they send you somebody else who gets trained by the people who are there. But I'm just saying, how would that be handled? Where's the staff coming from on sick days or on vacation time?
Right. That would be by their staff. And I think some of that would depend on what the court schedule would look like. And with this plan,
I mean, on the screening, Brent. I mean, if those guys are sick or they're taking vacation time, are you going to pull somebody off the road to cover it?
That's possible. With this plan, we do have the transport hours in there. It looks like under the proposal, it's 25 hours a week that we'd have that part-time transport.
You're using the transport staff
to assist with that,
Okay.
One quick question. Is there going to be a metal detector or anything like that at this point of entry?
Yes.
I got one question. Would that transport officer be the one that's armed?
The transport would not be armed. So we would always have an armed deputy there.
So there'd never be 2 transport down front?
No, we wouldn't do that. We would always have one armed deputy. I'd also add just to it that the Permar proposal that's out there, that's for the 3 staff. I don't have that right in front of me, but I don't know that really includes all the extra different meetings. So you're not always going to have 3 people at that front door because that proposal is for 8 hours per person. And so there's going to be, the door is going to be open probably 9 hours, 9.5 hours a day, depending upon what that gets.
So the hours would have to be staggered, is what you're saying?
For that per MAR, yes. Otherwise, they would never be able to reach that 140 mark anyways. And then you also have to consider that there's, the county board meetings, there's other meetings that happen at 4:30 that would have to be late. So even though the proposal is 140, in the proposal obviously talked about overtime and obviously we can't predict every meeting throughout the year, but that's kind of just the baseline for that. Just a couple of other things that add into just having a deputy there. They're able to transport the inmates from court or assist with transporting those inmates to their. On the second floor, we have the security office, remote booking area, which they would also be able to assist with that. And then I guess if they're always at the front door, that's fine, but they're just not able to assist with anything else. I think the flexibility of having armed deputies is obviously what, going back to why the county built this building is to keep everyone safe. I appreciate the checkpoints that Supervisor Pease talked about at the prison. People are coming to this building for different reasons, and I think you heard all those stories from different department heads. There's different, they're coming here for court, they're coming here divorces, TROs, different things like that. I think that is a lot different, and I think that's why the county decided to build this building to keep everyone safe. And I think in order to do that, you have to have somebody that has some authority to stop somebody from coming in and keep everyone safe.
Supervisor Pease. Scott.
I'd like to speak to that. We had all different types of people coming in our building, from families to people coming in to be married, to go to different apartments to talk to people. I mean, you can go on and on. There isn't much difference in what we had coming into a prison as you're going to have coming into this jail, or this courthouse.
Mr. Chair?
Supervisor West.
I'd like to make a comment, please. And I can see the need for maybe armed staff there every now and then. I could go with that proposal, but if we're going to go with that proposal, I don't know if we need to add additional layers of administrative staff at the beginning. I'd like to start with a lower, with just deputies first, to see if that would work. And because once you start with, adding a higher level of staff, it's always hard to retract that. It's always easier to go up than it is to go down. So, if we, be more economical, I know that, there is overtime, but if these are new positions that we create within, and they'd be union positions, and if not, the jobs are new. I think we can dictate, what hours they'd operate and work going forward with that, then, having a lieutenant or a patrol sergeant right away. So, thank you.
Committee member Rick.
Casey, this 131 for next year for the Sheriff's Department what do we have budgeted for next year for this? Is it 140 or is that for the year after?
140 for next year. So if you guys decided that you want to just do 2 deputies there, it'd be $10,000 for the year lower. So the annualized cost would be 140, 822 roughly. And it'd probably be about 127-ish. Is that about right, Chris?
Yeah, that's about right.
So yeah, about 127 if we did deputies and they started in March, because ultimately the facility would open in probably about June, July timeframe. So if you guys wanted to go that route, essentially what would happen, obviously we're not going to change the budget. We're not increasing the levy anyways. So what would happen is this money would move to probably contingency. It wouldn't stay in the sheriff's budget by any means. It'd be up to the board's discretion how it gets used.
With that, Pete, I'll make a motion that we approve the sheriff's plan of 2 deputies with the 1 jailer for this year only, and then we'll review it come budget time next year and see where it should go from there.
Motion by Rick Pease. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Scott Pease seconds it. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay, that motion passes. Anything further, Brent?
No. So part of that contingency or part of this plan was, I guess, just getting the staff and I guess I might have an issue basically starting these people in March because I am with only adding, like I said, I guess identifying who might promote up or into those positions. Starting them in March may be difficult to hire 2 new people. It takes 4 months for the training. I'll have to, I guess, work around that best I can with that.
Well, I guess if there's a problem, you could come back to us in a month and say, hey, it's not going to work or it is going to work.
Yeah,
fair.
I guess basically just I was anticipating basically 1 new position with that, and I thought we'd be able to, pull it from the road to make it work. With 2 new people coming from patrol, that just may be an issue, but.
I have confidence in you, Brett, that you should be able to handle.
Thanks, Marge.
Me and Peter on the building committee, and we're hoping for opening in July. It could be earlier, could be later. I'm probably thinking it's going to be a little bit later because they had some problems, but I think you should be okay. If not, let us know.
Training. I agree.
Right.
All right,
if there's a problem, Brent, you can come to us next month and let us know.
All right, thanks.
Anything further from you, Brent?
Yeah, I guess failed to discuss the just annual jail inspection that we did have earlier in my report. So basically, overall, very good report again this year. There was a couple food service DOC violations just with storing food and some minor things like that they've been addressed. We did have some the Huber bunks that are going to need to be replaced. There's some metal on them that is kind of cracking. It was thin metal when it was first built, so we'll have to address that. One of the other things that was just in the report is if you guys are familiar with the visitation area, the glass in that visitation area, it's been on the report for a couple of years. There's one that looks like it might be cracked. I think that was obviously going to be tried to be addressed in this building project, but the glass is the only thing that holds the inmates inside. So that's like the wall, if you would, with that. Yeah, other than that, overall, a very another good positive report. So,
what's the cost of replacing that glass?
Well, if we had to do it, we would just take the glass out and put block in. Would be my recommendation. We're looking to move to the video visitation anyways. And I don't know that any glass would be safe because there's no other secure housing door after that visitation area.
Okay. Questions from the committee regarding that? None. Anything else, Brent?
Nope, that's it. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Casey, 2021 budget update.
We just the change you made here is about the only change. The only change that we've made I don't think, yeah, there has been no changes to any of the departments that you guys have report to you. So unless you guys have a question, we'll update that. We'll work with Brent on a timeline. If it does need to be a little sooner, we'll leave some of the overage in there, but either way, it's going to be below the 140. So any excess will be returned back to the contingency fund and ultimately under the authority of the board on how you use it.
So it won't affect the budget.
No, it will. Either way, it won't have an effect on the budget. It'll just go into the contingency, and ultimately, if that doesn't get used, it gets put back into fund balance. So it's less money that we would have to levy in the future if additional costs did arise. So,
okay. Lyanna, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Would you just make note that last motion we made, make sure you put in that Rick's motion says an annual review of that. We approved that, but it's under an annual review. We want to look at it again next year. Thanks. I need a motion to approve all vouchers and monthly expense reports.
So moved.
Rick made the motion and Marge seconded it. Any questions about that, or hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Those opposed, please say nay. I'm not. Okay, set the next meeting date. I will tell you that I'm assuming Bob will be back in November, but I have no Wednesdays available in November. So why don't we let Bob set the meeting date?
I think Bob did set it.
When was it?
Let me look quick. Because we were on the 11th. He put it to the 18th, if that worked for everyone.
Okay, I won't be able to make that, but I think the rest of the board maybe can.
Yeah,
does that work for you guys? That's fine with them. Anything else to come before the committee?
I have no problem if you talk to Bob and you want to move it to a different day. I'll work it in. Just you and Bob should work it out, maybe.
Sure.
I concur.
It does look like the 19th is open.
Let me talk to Bob. Yeah, well, let's leave it at the 18th, and I'll talk to Bob.
Because he moved it a week later just because of the county offices are closed on the 11th.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Okay, let's tentatively leave that at that date, and we'll go from there. Any other matters to come before the committee? Hearing none, thank you all for coming, and we will adjourn at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.